My name is Ernestine Berry Carter.
Well, Ms. Carter, welcome to the Best of Smith Culture Center, and thank you for agreeing to give us your oral history. We want to know a little bit about how you got started in your profession and how you got started as a child here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Were you born here in Chattanooga?
I was born here in Chattanooga, in South Chattanooga, as a matter of fact.
South Chattanooga.
Yes, South Chattanooga, which is now North Chattanooga and downtown. Everything has switched around since I was born.
Okay. And when you said South Chattanooga, what area were you born
I was born and reared on Coward Street.
Howard Street.
My parents were Milton and Etta Berry.
You down there almost in Hooterville.
I was there.
That's the area they call Hooterville.
Yes.
So where did you attend school when you were growing up?
I'm
Where
sorry.
did you attend school when you were growing up?
Well, when I was growing up, we all went to Main Street School. You know, you had to walk across the railroad track to get to Main Street School. And then I had Miss Baby Ray Brown. And from there, I went to Second District. And from Second District to Howard High. And from that, out.
Out. Well, it seemed like we all in those days we matriculated to Howard High School. That's where we ended up.
That's where we ended up at, of course. And that was the school.
Now, were you at the first Howard or the second Howard?
No, I was at the first Howard. You know, when the first Howard, when we relocated,
Mm-hmm.
I was with that group, and that was around 53, I think, something like that.
1953. Okay.
Mhm.
So you actually went to Howard that was over on Carter Street.
On Carter Street,
Okay.
and was with the transfer
And over to the
to
new
South
Howard.
Chattanooga on Market Street.
Market Street. That
Right.
was the new Howard. Okay.
That's right.
Okay, so you graduated from Howard High School and then you went on to college.
Yes, I did. Well, not right away, but I did go when I first got out. One of my first jobs was down here on 9th Street.
On 9th Street.
On
What
9th
you
Street.
doing on 9th
I
Street?
think I was about, that was my first job. And
Okay.
this was the dry cleaning business.
Okay.
Mr. Klein was the dry cleaning business. And of course, he offered me a job checking in because I was real smart, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my first job. And after that, I decided that I wanted to do something different. As a child, I always knew I had special things about me, but I didn't know what.
Okay.
You know, like on Wednesday night when the garbage man would run and turn the garbage cans up and the street washer would come and wash the streets,
Right.
I would get on top of the garbage can and preach.
Get on top of the garbage can.
Stand on the garbage can and
As a
preach.
child?
As a child. And I knew that preaching somewhere was going to be in my destiny. I knew that. And another thing, I always wanted to take care of somebody.
Always wanted
Yeah,
to.
if you mash your finger, if you stomp your toe, I always had a little something I needed to put on it. And I knew nursing and taking care of people
Okay.
was also in my destiny. I knew those two things, but how it was going to fit in, how my purpose, how God's purpose and my plan was going to line up, that I did not know.
So you was one of those little girls that played with the dolls that when the dolls got broke, you wanted to fix
I had to fix it.
it.
I had to fix it.
Nothing wrong with that. So where did you go to college?
I went to Cleveland College and got my degree in nursing.
In nursing.
And I was so happy because that is what I wanted to do. I wanted to nurse. And so after I got my degree in nursing, it was a journey getting there. I first started working as a nurse assistant.
Okay.
And so doing the nurse assistant, I was so limited and I was always a person that felt like I could do more.
Okay.
So
And you still feel like you can do more
I
now.
still feel like I can do more. Amen. But the thing about it, I was limited because I was a nurse assistant. And there was only certain things the nurse assistant could do. And I knew then that I had to do more. And that's why I ended up at Cleveland College.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about those days because when you came out of school and when you got into nursing, it was a little difficult for African Americans at the time. You know, we some professions they just didn't look at us as professional folks back then. So when tell me a little bit about your first experience as a nursing assistant and then as a nurse And I think you went to work in Memorial Hospital.
At Memorial Hospital, and speaking about the front and the back, when I started working at Memorial Hospital as a nurse assistant, what is now the front was the back.
Okay.
So things just changed around. But it was always love in the hospital.
Okay.
Memorial was a hospital that they were, their goal was to give the best health care and to treat people in a decent way, and they did that. At that time, Sister Thomas DeSales was over the hospital, Sisters of Nazareth. She was over the hospitals, and of course, you were treated with respect, but in your own little category.
Right.
So as long as I was a nurse assistant, I was a nurse assistant and respected as that. But I wanted to do more. So in order to do more, I had to go to school and get educated. So that when those positions became available, I would be prepared to move into one of them.
Right.
But having worked as a nurse assistant, a LPN, and then an RN, the doctors and people were used to you in those particular settings.
Okay.
So when I was the RN, it was just like I still was the LPN. You know, the doctors had not accepted the fact that there were different people of color in higher categories. They had not accepted it, and so it was a task, but I was determined. So the only way you can make sure is you're going to have to prepare yourself.
Right.
So I encourage myself, other nurses that were LPNs and nurse assistants, I encourage them, let's go to school and let's get this thing worked out so that we can do what we want to do in nursing and be the successful professional women that we want to be. And they all had the same idea and wanted to do that. So we really worked together. But it was difficult getting the doctors that were used to seeing people of a different color.
Right.
You know, I had to be at the nurse's station, and a doctor would come up and knew him very well, or he knew me very well, and he'd say, "Oh, I need a nurse." Well, I'm standing here in my white uniform and my black band on my head, but he needs a nurse. So I learned how to approach that.
Okay.
And so, you know, the Bible says, agree with your adversaries quickly. And I would just say to him, well, doctor, I have your choice, and I'd love to make rounds with you this morning. I am the nurse.
And did he accept it like that?
They accepted it.
Okay.
Things didn't qualify you to go to the emergency room.
Right.
You had to do something.
They came out with that big old blue book, diagnostic handbook. Right.
Yes. But anyway, it was just a computerized protocols, and RNs only worked that. It was other RNs, but not of color.
Okay.
So I was the first one to do that. And
Okay. So you were the first, and what did you do? Give me a little bit.
well, when I'd get a call, for instance, a person could call and say, you know, I got a headache. And so I would ask them all about, tell me about your headache. How does it hurt? How does it hurt? They give me the symptoms. I go to the doctor's protocol, and some of them I had personal protocols for different doctors that wanted their patients handled a little bit different.
Right.
for an in-service meeting, and they didn't have anybody else to make the commercial.
So they had to put this little black
So
woman
they
on that
had to
commercial.
do it, and I had my cap ready, I had my shoes shined, I had everything, and I just turned around and said, "This is Asking Nurse. How can I help you?"
That was all right.
That was all right. What I'm saying is, when you do the right thing, God makes a way for you.
Every day.
Every day. I didn't have to fuss about it. People that worked with me in the hospital when I didn't get the job to begin with, they wanted to protest, and I said, "No. If you want to do anything, just say a prayer."
Mm-hmm.
And it happened.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, all things are possible to those that can believe.
all the time. That's one good thing about it. So it must have been very difficult being a pioneer because
Pioneer.
you were a pioneer.
Pioneer, trailblazer.
Yeah, you're a trailblazer, exactly. So it must have been very difficult for you as a pioneer and as a black woman pioneer to
Right.
blazing these trails for others to come. But
Right.
it must have been really difficult to handle that kind of thing. Certainly because you knew that you had gotten an education. You knew you were qualified to do the job you were doing. But others looked at you as if you weren't qualified sometimes. And you had to handle that. How did you handle that?
How did I handle that?
Yes.
With expectation. I didn't give up. You know, I had to keep trying. I had to prove myself.
Right.
I had to make sure that I was doing the right thing and that I knew all about the patient. And when the doctor would come or when I would have opposition from others, I didn't let it affect me because I knew this is what I wanted to do. And I had having problems with people in the hospital because it was segregated.
Right.
And having them to get used to, we were all friends, but we would get to one place where you go this way to the cafeteria and I go that way to the cafeteria, but we had to come together as one. So we had to find a way to do that. And I broke that ice because I began to say, "Look, let's go over here. We can go over here now. Why not go?"
Right.
And we began to do that. Slowly but surely we got there.
Okay, so you not only was a trailblazer as a nurse, you was a trailblazer as one of those people that brought others together for the same common purpose, to serve the people.
Right, right. I want to say this too, you know, speaking about being difficult during those days when I was called to the ministry.
Okay.
When I was called to the ministry, Mr. Cameron, there were not women in ministry preaching, especially in some churches. In the church that I was in, my denomination was a Baptist.
Mm-hmm.
So, but eventually I was ordained and licensed as non-denomination. But when I was called to the ministry, they didn't want me to stand in the pulpit. They didn't want me to use the microphone. They didn't want me to pray. They didn't want me to do anything but just say that I've been called to the ministry. So I hit the street and I preached on the street. I took my ministry.
You were no street corner
I
preacher.
was a street corner preacher because I knew what God had called me to do. It didn't matter whether they gave me a mic. It didn't matter if I stood on. It mattered that I did what I was called to do, my purpose.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
Paul.
Yeah.
You went from being Saul to Paul.
So that's why I went to the streets with my preaching, and then finally, later, they began to wake up and see that women were equal to preach as men.
Well,
but we had to keep the right attitude.
Well, and we still have to do that today. There's so much going on in this world, but by the grace of God, we can all make it.
Oh, definitely.
If we aspire to make it.
Yeah, we need each other. Yeah. You need me. Yeah. I need you.
Yeah, we don't live in this world
by ourselves. We're all a part of God's plan.
Right.
Amen. When I was called to the ministry, it was very difficult. Mm-hmm. And I was a visionary for EBC Ministry, I'm the visionary and pastor of that ministry. It's a ministry of love. Okay. Meeting needs and help healing hurts. This is what we do. Intercessors. I pray for people anywhere. It's no. When you see me in the store, I might lay hands on someone to pray, or I might anoint them with oil if they need that, or whatever is needed from a person from me in the spirit, mental, or physical. I want to give it.
Okay, so you're not just a nurse; you're a minister also.
I'm a minister
you,
also, and I
and
was the first.
you heal the body and soul.
I was the first woman to go down to the jailhouse and minister to all those prisoners down on 600 Cherry Street because I felt like they need to know there is a better way. We need to stop this revolving door in the jail, out, in the jail, out. But where did they go? There was no place to go. So when I went down there, now that was a challenge because I had no idea it was all male. And at first, the sheriff told me flat right out, no. And I said, I can't take that for an answer because God told me this is what I'm supposed to do. And so I ended up for 7 years doing ministry to the prisoners, and a lot of their lives were changed because of the ministry. Because I went in there with love in my heart, and I had a purpose in my mind, and I was not judgmental, but I tried to help them in every way that I could. And then there was resources that came along right about that time with Stop the Madness. We were having so much crime that they established a group here called Stop the Madness Group.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did, I joined that group, one of the first groups here, and one of the, well, there was other women there, other women of color, all, I think just about all the group was of color.
Was that the same Stop the Madness group that John Watts started back in those days?
This was Turnay Jordan.
Turnay Jordan.
Turnay Jordan started this one. And it gave some avenues for the young people that were getting into problems so much. They wanted to address the social need in the city. So there was a opening there with Stop the Madness for resources to find places and to find things for these young people to do, and it did help. So it was all just what was in my heart to do and what was in my purpose to do.
So as a nurse and then as a minister, how did you bridge those two things together? Because certainly as a nurse, you're trying to take care of the health needs of a person, but as a minister, you're trying to take care of their spiritual needs. So how did you forge those two to make them one?
Elijah, you got to look at a person as a whole person, the body, the mind, and the spirit. I wanted to minister to all of that. You got to get the mind right. You got to get the body right. You got to get all of it in one sync in order for it to work. So it worked fine for me because I wanted to pray for people anyway. And I got the opportunity as the first admissions nurse at Memorial of Color. I had the opportunity because I was the first person that they saw.
Right.
When a person was being admitted to the hospital, they saw me. And I made the arrangements for their room. I did their lab work. I did everything and let them talk to me and vent. Are you afraid? Is it something I can do to make this easy for you? So it worked out real well for me. And being in a hospital that was a Christian hospital, I didn't have any opposition.
Okay.
On
So
that.
so did you incur any negativism as the first black charge nurse or a mission nurse at the time with white customers and things of that nature? Did you incur any negativism?
Sometimes I did. Sometimes there were people that would come up to me and say, well, they would ask you a question and I would give them the answer, but then they wanted it verified by someone of a different color.
Okay.
And of course, I said to them, I'm it. I'm the person that gives you the answer. So this is the answer.
So you persevered through all of that.
I had to do it. And it's not easy because during that time, you got to, the hospital was just becoming integrated too.
Right. Exactly.
And they had little codes now.
Right.
That said, this is
Still
a
got
black person. And I knew all of that.
Right.
And it was kind of difficult for me because I would sometimes say, you know what, I'm going to switch this. I'm going to put these two together. I'm going to put them in the same room and see how it works out.
Okay.
And sometimes it worked out better than we thought. Sometimes it didn't work out and the patient would be upset, wouldn't go in the room, wanted to leave the hospital just because the person in the next bed was of a different color.
That was those were some strange times, and of course, we live in strange times now.
With
You
the
know,
same thing is going on. It's
yeah,
nothing new under the sun.
nothing new under the sun.
So
So
this is why I think, as a Christian and as a nurse and as a intercessor, I've been in places where I could do good for people, that I could help them, regardless. It's not about me. If you don't get self out of the way, you can't do it.
yeah,
You have to get self out of the way, and you can't be offended by every little thing. See, I have to pray up first. I have to make sure that my soul and my heart is right first. And when I did that, God just paved the way for me. The things that could have been very difficult were difficult. Well, sometimes that I felt like, throwing in the towel, sometimes, but I didn't
okay,
because I knew it was part of my purpose.
right.
So if you know your purpose and your plan line up together, you'll be successful, regardless of what comes against you. And it was not really about me now that I look back. It's about those coming after me.
Yes, and a lot of
Maybe
people, a lot of black nurses stand on your shoulder today, simply because of the perseverance that you were willing to go through and accept the things that were happening to you, and in order for you somewhere down the line to be able to make some changes.
make some change.
Yeah. So you've all through your life you've been able to do some great things, and you've been rewarded. You've gotten awards. You've been one of those people that have received quite a lot of accolades
I have.
and several awards, not just from your peers, but from others in the city and around the country.
Absolutely.
So tell me, what would you say to young people, or young ladies, or young men that was looking to go into the nursing field today? What would you say to them? How would you talk to them?
Wow. It's so many open doors now that we didn't have. Take advantage of it.
Right.
And first of all, understand that God has a purpose for your life. And also, you have a plan for your life. The plan and the purpose sometimes doesn't meet up when you think it does. But if you have that desire and determination and willing to make sacrifices, Elijah, you will be successful.
Now, certainly, I think you made a lot of sacrifices,
I
and
mean,
you are successful because you're still here. You're still talking about the things that need to be talked about. You're still trying to help people. It's amazing that, and I don't talk about age, but a mature sister like yourself will still be around trying to do some of the things that young people should be doing at this time of their life.
absolutely.
But we really appreciate the things that you've done with your life and in your life. We really appreciate the way that you've handled those things that happened to you in the past, those negative remarks that you probably received, and those negative looks that you probably got. You handle that with dignity, and that helped you to be successful and to earn all those accolades that you so truly deserve.
Oh, yeah. You
And
have to stay focused.
You've done that. So when we as we conclude this particular piece of history, I want to say to you, thank you. Thank you for being the lady that you've been. Thank you for allowing others to stand on your shoulders and being able to guide them through some adversities that they may be going through. But more than that, we wanted to say thank you for just being Ernestine Carter, because you've truly been yourself. You haven't tried to be anybody else. And that's something that we have to aspire to be in ourselves. We have to be us and not try to be anybody else.
That's right.
And like you said, there's always a purpose in life. We just need to reach out and touch our purpose and try to align it up with what God has for us to do. Thank you, Ms. Carter, for being willing to come down and share part of your life history with us. I know I can't get it all because we'll be here for weeks on weeks in because you've done so much here in the city. You've done so much around the country. So we said thank you again and thank you for just being who you are.
Well, thank you, Elijah, Mr. Cameron. I appreciate the opportunity just to share part of my story. It's so much, much more. I do counseling now at my home on the phone. I do prayer on the phone, Facebook prayer, whatever I can do. It never stops. It never stops because one day I'll be gone. And
Yes.
I want my memory to be a monument in the hearts of the people that knew me to say that I've done my best.
But certainly we
And
thank
thank you so much for having me.
yeah, we thank you because what we're doing today will live on. Your words will be inspiring to others because we plan to make sure that this is something that lives here at the museum, that others will be inspired by your words. And again, we thank you just for being you.
Thank you.